computer. All right, here we go. Technical difficulties. we did our best, and we're here now to talk about annual planning. So my name is Kelly Muniz. I'm the Cub Master for Pack 138 out of Spencer. And we're going to talk about why you should annual plan. So next slide, please. So you should have an annual plan, if at all possible, because that helps make satisfied scouts and families and a lifelong love of scouting. If you're very unorganized and you don't know what's coming up next and you can't disseminate that information to your families, you can cause confusion and just distaste for, nobody likes an unorganized organization. So it's been shown that a common element of strong packs is that they all have good annual pack program planned a year in advance, ideally. Some units I know decide to do like 6 months in advance because things are fluid and things can change. So just keep in mind what works for my unit might not work for your unit. So you want to do what's best for your unit, whether it be 6 months in advance, whether it be a year in advance, but ideally have enough planned in advance that you know what's going on. So you're not fumbling for what your next pack event is going to be. Next slide. So who should attend the annual planning meeting? All your pack committee members, all your den leaders, if at all possible. I know in my unit, not all of our den leaders join. A lot of our den leaders are also committee members. So a lot of them are there, but not all of them. All your pack or den aides and den chiefs, we don't have any come to our annual meeting. We actually have it adult only. So there are no children there. Your chartered org rep, if you have a good relationship with them, and if they are a hands-on chartered org and they want to know what you're doing when you're doing it, my unit, they pretty much give us free reign as long as we are respectful to the building and don't do anything obviously outside of BSA and their organization's ideals. Your unit commissioner can be invited. They have a lot of information on what you can and can't do for your unit as far as guide to safe scouting, things like that. They also know, a lot of the times, know what the council has coming up. So they're a good resource to use. And anyone else you think might be helpful, a parent who is super good at crafts or has connections to an event that you want to run, is a good idea to have them there in case they have some input. Next slide. So what info you want to have when you come to this meeting. So you don't want to just go to your annual planning meeting and again, wing by the seat of your pants and not have the information that gathered that you might need to plug into this calendar. So a big one, key school dates. Don't plan your Pinewood Derby during February vacation. That being said, my pack does that, but we generally do it the last weekend of the vacation so that most people are back from whatever trips they're taking or family visits or whatever. Community dates, anything like Veterans Day parades, Memorial Day parades, anything like that that you are a part of, as well as big community happenings. If it's a fair weekend or if there is a summer, I know a lot of towns do summer music events and stuff. That's a good idea to have those in there because sometimes you can make that a scout event as well by like having your pack go to the concert, or my unit actually does we do service projects at the fair. So we clean tables, and that is a lot of our service hours for the year. We get, I want to say it's hundreds of hours between the 4 days of the fair, and we have 3 scouts per shift on 2-hour shifts for cleaning the tables at the main pavilion at the fair. So things like that you want to have on there. Your chartered organizations dates, anything big that they have, so that you know that you can join them for whatever that event is, but also so that you know if there is, our chartered org is the American Legion. So if they have a Legion Riders event and they're using the building for that, obviously I can't make a PAC event for that date as well. So I need to know those dates. Any personal dates that might affect your PAC's activities, such as the Cub Masters anniversary cruise. I do not go on a cruise. I wish I did, but if I go to grooming shows. If I have a grooming show weekend, I can't make a camp out that weekend, because there's no way that I'm going to pass that along to the rest of my leaders to run a camp out without me. So I want to make sure that I have those dates set in on the calendar, so that we know not to put an event on that weekend that I'm going to be gone. Any districts and council dates, so that you can also make sure you don't have anything running, but so that you can disseminate that information to your families, so that they can join in, say, district Pinewood Derby, Spookery, things like that. Collected family talent survey sheets from all the parents. I have last year's every year, but I don't have the following year's talent surveys. So any new Scout parents that have those, because my annual planning meeting is in July or August. And so my new Scouts that join in September, I obviously don't have that from those parents, but I do have the existing parents' talent surveys for us to go through, so that we know if we're planning an event. Let's use Pinewood Derby, for example. We're setting our pit night. I know that I have 3 parents who are in the general contracting field. So I have a general contractor, I have an electrician and plumber, but he also does, finish work and stuff. So they have tools that they can bring to pit night. They can also help the Scouts by using, if they're power tools, they can use the power tools for the Scouts and cut the cars. And then the Scouts can finish up with the hand tools, things like that. You want to make sure you're using those talent surveys to pull help from your other parents, so that you're not doing it all and your leaders aren't doing it all. Sorry. And last year's PAC annual plan, if you have one. So what I do for our annual planning meeting is I actually take all of last year's events, and I take a calendar for the upcoming year, and I plug in all of those events on whatever week it normally is. So if we run our Pinewood Derby the last weekend in February, I'm going to put it the last weekend in February for the next year. And then we're going to go in and do all these community dates and everything and adjust things as needed. So you pull off of the last year, you don't have to redo and think of, oh, when can we put our Pinewood Derby this year? When can we put our blue and gold? When should graduation be? If it's the same or relatively the same time every year, you can kind of just plug that into your calendar ahead of time, and that saves some work during the meeting. Next slide. So this part's easy. Step 1, take all the dates you collected, put them in the master calendar, including the den meeting dates. So I put the den meeting dates in as well, every Monday, except for holidays, school holidays and major holidays, and vacation weeks. I plug all of that in beforehand. You can do it during your meeting. There's no reason why I can't do it beforehand. So I do it beforehand, and then I print out a hard copy of the calendar and then give it to everybody who's at the meeting. You can do it whichever way works for your unit. If it's easier for you guys to work on an electronic calendar on the computer, or by sharing it on Google or whatever, that is entirely up to you. Whatever works for you guys, you're going to want to do. And don't take what I do and try to make it fit your unit. Just take the ideas that work for you and use them, and what doesn't work for you, come up with, for whatever doesn't work for you, find a way that does work for you and use it. Next slide. All right, so reviewing last year, what events worked? Which ones were a big hit with the Scouts? Which ones didn't work? Who didn't come? To say you did bottle rockets in the summer and nobody came. Well, then maybe you don't want to do bottle rockets next year. Maybe that just isn't something that your families are interested in. Look and see. So the National Summertime Pack Award, everybody knows that that's a thing, right? You've all seen it. So that is, you can get a Summertime Pack Award if you do, I think it's one event for every month during the summer. So June, July, August. If you have at least one event in each of those months, and you have a certain amount of your Scouts show up, each den can get a pack award. There's a little, let's see if I can take it off my uniform. There's a little pin that they can earn. It looks like, let's see if you guys can see that. It looks like that. And there's one for each den. So there's a different color for each lion, lions, tigers, wolves, bears, webelos. So that keeps your Scouts engaged during the summer. So definitely, if you're not doing that right now, I highly suggest adding that to your annual plan. JTE, Journey to Excellence. Just look at that and what your goals were and how you did in the last year. So if you need more service events because your service hours were lacking and you didn't even get bronze for that category for the year, you might want to add some service projects, things like that. How was your den and pack attendance? Were your den meetings great, but your pack meetings were lackluster and you only had 1 or 2 Scouts from each den? Things like that. And summer camp. Did we participate in summer camp? Summer camp is a big one. My unit does not do summer camp very well, so that's something we want to work on. Next slide. Brainstorm. So brainstorming is literally everybody just throws stuff out. No judgment. Any idea comes to the table and then you kind of weed it out later. So what activities might you want to do during the year? Let's see. So I had a comedian last year come and do a virtual comedy show with the Scouts. Unfortunately, it couldn't be in person. But that was a big hit. We had the aquarium do a little talk about their seals and sea lions. That was pretty cool. And then if you wanted to do, bottle rockets, or you wanted to do a trip to the Boston Science Museum, things like that. Just everybody throws out ideas and you work on whittling those down, because obviously every idea can't necessarily be squeezed into the year. So what can be incorporated into a den or a pack meeting? So that comedy show, that didn't have to be a separate meeting. That was actually our meeting for that week. So instead of having meeting by den, because we were virtual, we did a pack meeting. So everybody logged on at the same time and they all listened to the comedy. And that actually worked really, really well. was awesome. Next slide. All right, so fill in the calendar. So if you've already filled in school and community dates, holidays are a big one. Don't forget the holidays. I did that one year. That was bad. Any leader personal conflicts. So your Lion leader is not available for 2 dates because of work training in February. You want to make sure that you put that in there so that you know that either you need to cover the Lions meetings or they are not meeting for 2 weeks. Any additional den or pack activities, your Weeblos are meeting with the troop and they're going on a camp out. That you would want to add on there so that you know that they are going for that weekend with the troop. Again, district and council dates. Those are big ones, and I will be the first person to admit that I don't always do that for the annual plan. And then I am not always good if they're not already on that calendar. I might forget to share them, and that's no good. So I am working on being better about that. Assign the person who will be responsible for each event. That is, if you are able to, that's probably a good idea, because if Sally knows that she is responsible for blue and gold because she has an arrow of light crossing over, that will allow her to start planning that, even if it's just in her head, earlier than you might actually start planning the event as a committee. So if you can assign people, if you don't, we don't do that all the time, and it seems to work pretty well, that we're able as a committee to plan most of our events kind of as a whole. But my committee consists of 4 people, so it's not a huge committee. If you have a huge pack and a huge committee, then you probably want to split those events up by who's responsible for them, so that your committee chair and or your Cub Master is not in charge of everything, because they shouldn't be in charge of everything. That's a lot of work. Next slide. Let's see. All right, so we're almost done with our planning session, and hopefully it hasn't been all afternoon. Review the calendar and make sure that it has all the info and events that you want on there. This is a big one. Publish the calendar to the PAC families. All of my PAC families are added to the, we use Google Calendars. So I have the PAC in red, and all PAC activities are in red, and all of the families have access to that calendar. So they can, if they use Google, they can merge it with their own calendar, but they also have access to look at that calendar if they're not sure if we have a meeting the week of, like, this coming Monday because it's vacation. And I already had a parent go, "We don't meet next week, do we?" No, we don't, because it's vacation week. I kind of forgot that too and thought we had a meeting on Monday. Make sure that it is emailed, social media, as well as physical copies. I have one family that does not do digital anything. They don't have email, they don't use social media. They need a physical copy of the calendar so that they know what's going on, because when I send out an email, they're the only one that doesn't get it. So if she has the calendar, she can look and remember that there's no meeting on Monday, as opposed to me forgetting that she doesn't get the email that I sent out that says there's no scouts, and then she shows up to scouts and nobody's there. Next slide. All right, and reviewing the calendar, again, that 6 months, if you are only doing 6 months because your year tends to be a little fluid, you want to review that calendar irregardless of whether you're doing a year or 6 months, because things can change. So it's an ongoing process. I may have missed the deadline for an overnight at the Science Museum, and now we have to change that date. So I want to make sure that I change that date and get that information out to the families so that they know that it's not in March this year, it's going to be in April, and apologize because I slacked off and didn't get that done. But yeah, just make sure that you're looking at it. It isn't always set in stone. So make sure that if something changes with, say, the school or a community event or anything like that, sometimes those things change and you want to adjust your calendar as needed. Next slide. And these are where you can get printable calendars from the file store to fill in. You can also use, I just Googled free printable 2021 calendar or 2022 calendar, and then printed it out and filled it out by hand, and then went into Google and put in all of those events after we set our calendar at the meeting.